Well, if you've been around here long enough, you know I love visiting theme parks. And throughout my visits, I've definitely learned a few tips or tricks along the way. One of my favorite things to do is to plan out my visits ahead of time before visiting a new theme park. So I thought it would be helpful today for our live stream topic to share with you guys 10 things to know when planning a visit to a theme park. One of my favorite things that I like to do, like I said, is to plan out my visits ahead of time before actually going to the theme park. So that way I can absolutely make the most of my time when I am visiting the park. My inspiration for this live stream topic came from about 2 weeks ago or weekends ago when I visited Hershey Park located in Hershey, Pennsylvania for the first time in a while. That had been the first time that I had visited a new theme park in a little bit. So in learning and studying what to know before actually going to the park, it gave me this idea to share with you guys if you are planning a trip to a theme park coming up anytime soon. And these tips really helped me to hit the ground running whenever I went to Hershey Park. So that way I knew how to maximize my time. And these tips usually we talk about here on the channel. We usually talk about Disney tips and how to make the most of your Disney visits. But these tips are going to be really helpful for any theme park that you visit in the future. And this is how I like to maximize my time whenever I am visiting any theme park that I go to. So if you are visiting here for the first time, or if you usually come here on Wednesdays, I want to say thank you so much for being here either on the live stream or if you're watching on the replay. This video is a part of our weekly live stream series where we talk about usually tips to help you maximize the time that you have whenever visiting the Disney parks. But these tips are going to be very helpful if you're visiting Universal, Six Flags, Hershey Park, any theme park in the future. This is really going to be able to help you to maximize your time and really go into your visit to a theme park knowing all that you need to know to have the best time whenever you're visiting there. So thank you so much for being here on the live stream. I want to say hi to anybody that is in the chat. Hey, Matt, thanks so much for being here. I'm very excited to have you guys all here. Thanks so much for hopping in. Hey, Disney World is my happy place. Hey, Lorna, thanks so much for being here, guys. Very excited to bring this topic to you guys tonight. And I also want to say that later on in the live stream, I posted on my community tab today, we have a very special and exciting announcement coming this evening. I want to say pack your bags because we are going to visit a new theme park. And later on in the stream tonight, we're going to announce where we're going and where you guys are going to be visiting with me. I'm very excited. It's my first time visiting this park, and I'm excited to bring you guys along on the journey. So let me know in the comments where you think we are going to be visiting. There is a subtle hint in the background. I don't know if you can see or not, but I'm very, very excited to bring you guys along in this journey. So thank you guys so much for being here on the live stream, or if you are watching on the replay, thank you so much for being here. So I am going to go ahead and hop into our topic for tonight. Let me just read a chat really quick. And let's see. So Obsessed Rangers fan, thank you so much for being here, by the way. You did go to Disney World back in July. Didn't really know what to plan. And I go to Town Theme Park every weekend and I ride some of my favorite rides without really knowing what to do. Well, I'm hoping that these tips will help you to really maximize your time and really plan out better in the future whenever you're going to theme park. So I hope that you will, that these tips will be helpful for you guys. So I already see some of the responses coming in. Those are good guesses, guys. And I'm excited to share with you guys where we are going. And Disney World is my happy place. Yes, I'm very excited for Fantasmic to release and come back on November 3rd. I saw that update today. I'm so pumped for that. Very, very excited for it. Let me know if you guys are excited as well. So thank you guys for being here. We're going to go ahead and hop into the tips. Feel free at any point in the live stream, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. We've got some mods that would be happy to help out, and I would love to answer any questions that you have as well. So we're going to go ahead and get into the first tip that I have for you guys, and that is to get to the park early. One of my favorite things to do when planning out a visit or when going to a theme park is really getting to the park early, so that way I know that I can maximize my time whenever I'm there. The one reason why I say this, to get to the park early, is because there may be some things that you need to do before actually getting into the park that you may need to take care of and may take more time than you are really accounting for whenever going to the theme park. If you're driving to a theme park. Parking may be farther away from the actual park. You may need to budget some time to actually get into the park. I know for Disney World, they have huge parking lots. Sometimes you have to take a separate tram to actually get to the front of the park. I know at Hershey Park, I am a season pass holder, so we had a separate lot that was closer to the entrance, but other guests were going to have to take a tram to actually get to the front of the park. So that can take some time before actually getting into the park that you are going to. Another thing is if you are purchasing a ticket to get into the park, sometimes you have to actually go to a separate ticket window before getting into the theme park, and there can be some lines that you have to wait in before actually getting into the park there. So that is a good place to budget some time for. And also, whenever actually getting into the theme park itself, there may be lines when the park originally opens that you might have to budget some time for to actually get into the park. So to really maximize your time, if I am driving to a theme park, I like getting to the park an hour before it actually opens. This gives me time to actually get into the park. If I need to take care of any tickets for guests that I'm bringing, that leaves us some time to wait in lines and also leaves us time to actually get into the park itself. I know when going to Disney World in Hershey Park 2 weekends ago, one thing that was nice is even though long lines can form to actually get into the park, sometimes they will let guests into the park early to make sure that you are in there. They may kind of corral you off in a different area and not officially open the park, but they will let you in to really kind of get everybody moving and into the park ahead of time. So that's one of my favorite things that I like to do. I like to really get to the park early ahead of time. Like I said, usually an hour is a good amount of time to budget, but definitely keep in mind time for transportation if you need tickets and all of that good stuff. So I highly recommend getting there early so that way you can hit the ground running whenever you are in the parks. And Lorna, we might have some tips for single visitors coming up here. So I definitely can share some tips for you with those. And yes, Disney World is my happy place. Universal has big parking garages like Disney Springs. Yes. So sometimes, there can be lines going into parking and it may take a little bit to actually get to the entrance of the park. So I love budgeting some time ahead of time for that. So yes, thank you guys. Those are definitely good inputs for sure. And thank you guys for the chats and the questions. The second thing that I want to say tip wise for you is to download the theme parks app before your visit. Now, anytime I go to a new theme park, after going to Disney World and Universal and seeing that they have apps that you can use on your visit, I always make sure to check and see if there is actually an app for the theme park that I am visiting. Now, some of the smaller parks might not have their own apps, but I absolutely love downloading the apps, having it on my mobile device to use because there's a lot of features that you can really use to your advantage whenever you are visiting the park. You guys may have known if you've seen previous live streams or videos, I love the My Disney Experience app, the Universal app, because they have a lot of key features like mobile ordering. I love checking wait times. I love looking at park maps in case I have no idea where I'm going. That is very helpful to have on your mobile device, something that is very handy to just have on hand. So that way you can really maximize its use for whenever you are at the parks. That's one thing whenever I went to Hershey Park 2 weekends ago. One of the first things that I did when planning my visit was download the app and see if they actually had one. So that's a tip for you whenever you are visiting a park. Just check and see if they have an app that you can download. Sometimes you can even create an account that helps kind of speed up the process to get you in and out of the park. I really like it too because whenever we were at Hershey Park, it was weird because the park didn't actually display the wait times at the entrances of the park. So the only way that you really knew how long the line would be was by checking the app. So I was very happy that I had that ahead of time and downloaded on my phone so that way I could use it. And since I didn't really know where I was going when I was at Hershey Park, I loved using the map feature that they had on the app. So if it's your first time visiting that particular theme park, it might be very handy for you to have that feature on your phone so that way you can really get your bearings and figure out where you need to be and use any features that they may have to use to your advantage whenever you are at that particular theme park. So, hey, Not Carol Pink, thanks so much for being here. Hey, your pal Al, good seeing you. Thanks so much for being here. And yes, the apps are so helpful for my family and I to book dining reservations. Yeah, at Disney World. Yes, definitely. That is very, very helpful as well. We're going to talk a little bit about dining later on, but this is very helpful if you are looking for a place to eat, or like you're saying, if you are trying to book dining reservations. Sometimes the apps are very handy that you can just do it all through the app. So it's really just a one-stop place that you can really use to your advantage to kind of book and figure out everything for your visit. So I definitely like that for sure. And let's see here. Do you have you're saying, do you have the Disney World and app? Yes, mainly used for wait times or other things. Yes, you guys know I love checking wait times. This helps me really maximize my time in the park, because when I am in line for a current ride, I like to check wait times and see where I would like to go next. So that way I can keep making the most of the time that I have whenever I'm in the park. So glad you guys use apps as well. I absolutely love checking to see if the park that I'm going to actually has an app ahead of time. And I was very surprised that Hershey Park had one. So that was nice to be able to have that on my phone to be able to use for my visit. So the third thing that I want to recommend to you is to, when you're planning out your visit, study the layout and the map of the park. So when I went to Hershey Park, I had been long, long ago whenever I was a kid, but this was my first time visiting in a while. I had not been in a long time. So I really had no idea what kind of rides there were, where things were located. And one thing that I really liked to do is, even though hadn't been there in a while, and it's nicer, kind of seeing things for yourself in person, it's easier to get an idea of where things are at. A nice thing to do is just kind of have an overview and a layout and mental image of where things are located in the park before you are actually going. I like doing this so that way, if I know that I'm looking for a particular ride, or whenever I'm walking around the park, I kind of have an idea of where things are located at. When I was at Hershey Park, I was kind of lost and I didn't really look into the map ahead of time. And I figured out that if I had known the layout of the park or where rides were located ahead of time, it really would have helped me better in my visit. So that way I knew where I was going and where I needed to be for my visit. So definitely recommend study the layout of the park, figure out where things are located, so that way you can best maximize your time. And then you don't feel so lost during your visit, because that is kind of how I felt whenever I was at Hershey Park. So I always like checking out the maps and kind of getting an idea of where I need to be at ahead of time before actually going. And yeah, sometimes the parks can be so big. Like you're saying, Animal Kingdom here is so big, it's hard to get around. So studying the map helps me definitely, especially for the Disney parks. Hershey Park was a little bit smaller of a park, but I still felt like I didn't know where I was going exactly. But the Disney parks in Universal, they can be so big. You can really kind of get lost at times. And so to make sure you're making the most of your time, I always like checking the maps and figuring out ahead of time where I need to be, so that way I can kind of hit the ground running, even though I keep saying that. So this is going to go into the next thing that I like to plan out and kind of get an idea ahead of time. But that is tip number 4 is to plan out rides before your actual visit. So sometimes when you go to the parks, wait times may be long, or you might not even know what kind of rides are actually at the park. And what I like to do is, usually on the websites, if you go on any of the theme park websites, usually they have an attractions list that lists out all of the rides and attractions that they actually have at the park. When I was looking into Hershey Park, the first thing I did after seeing if they had an app was to see what kind of rides they had. And I loved seeing the list and the images of what the rides actually looked like. This gave me a good idea, because what I always recommend is, whenever you're going to a park, I always like coming up with the top 4 or 5 attractions that I absolutely want to do whenever I am visiting that park. This was great for Hershey Park because I had no idea what kind of rides they had. I knew they had really great coasters, but I didn't really know what coasters they had or what they offered. So by checking the list, it gave me a good idea of what rides I could kind of expect and look into, and what I really wanted to do whenever I was visiting the park. So I highly recommend, before you're going, make sure you are taking a look at what rides they have. This will give you a good idea of making a list and seeing what kind of rides you absolutely want to do. So that way you don't get to the end of the day and figure out that there's something that is there that you missed and you aren't able to experience. This will help you to make sure you can maximize your time and actually get to your must-dos of your day. I love making a list of what I absolutely want to do. and figuring out what kind of rides are in the park is very, very helpful and something that I recommend doing whenever you are visiting a new park, especially if you've never been there before. So, highly recommend checking the list and seeing what kind of attractions are there before you actually get into the park. So, let's see here. Hey, Doofs, thanks so much for being here. No problem about being late. You're all good. Let's see. Yeah, this is perfect. So that's another good thing that if you're riding solo, of course you can do whatever you want whenever you're visiting the park, but if you're visiting with a group of people, this is something that's very good as well. Kind of get an idea of what everybody wants to do. So you're saying you talk to your family before your trip and ask them what they want to ride. Absolutely recommend that, especially if you guys want to ride the same things. This is great because you can kind of kill two birds with one stone and ride and kind of please everyone, but having a collective idea of what you guys all want to ride will make sure that you are making the most of your time and getting to everything that you want to. And the other reason why I kind of touched on it, but I recommend doing this is because if you have a list of the top rides that you want to do and lines are very long, this will make sure you're actually doing the rides that you really want to check out. I know when we were at Hershey Park, the lines were absurdly long for whatever reason. Maybe it was because it was a holiday weekend, but it was nice having a list of the rides we wanted to check out because we were able to do those even though the lines were incredibly long. So, highly recommend doing that. It'll help you to maximize your time and make sure that you're pleasing everyone that is in your group as well. So, I really like that tip. I'm glad that you think about that ahead of time whenever you're planning Disney World is my happy place. Not Carol Pink. I did want to highlight this. Thank you. We were working on the background setup. This is definitely an upgrade from last week. So thank you so much. And yes, we definitely have a lot of Loungefly bags to be able to display. So maybe next week we might be able to kind of switch out the collection, which is nice. So we can kind of highlight the bags. So thank you guys. I appreciate it. Um, uh, Kitty Kathy, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And yeah, no problem. Let's see. Doofs, this is an interesting tip, and I'm glad you brought it up. Always start to the left. Statistically, most people go to the right. So that is a very interesting tip. I have heard that a lot. And I know that in my, personally, that is what I usually like to do whenever I think about going to Magic Kingdom. I usually like to start the Adventureland route. I guess this would be only applicable except for when you're visiting Epcot, because a lot of people like to oh, well, yes, actually, a lot of people like to go to the left and start in Mexico, but some people like to start in Canada. So I guess it just kind of depends on what you prefer as far as that part goes. But Deuce, this is a very good tip to keep in mind. So I'm glad that you shared that. Thank you. Okay, so let's get into the fifth tip that we have here. And this is something that is very, very important if you're visiting a park that has a lot of roller coasters. So, the fifth thing that I want to recommend here is to research the bag policy. So, as you guys can see in the back, we talk about Loungeflies. I absolutely love packing a bag whenever I visit any theme park in general. I have a lot of theme park essentials that I like to bring with me whenever I visit a theme park. And so, what I like to do before visiting the park of my choice or wherever I'm visiting is I like to see what kind of bag policy they have. So I know when I visit Disney World, there's not a lot of intense coasters. There aren't really any rides that you can't bring your bags on. If you're visiting Universal and Hershey Park and rides or parks that have a lot more coaster-based attractions, there may be instances where you have to put your bags in lockers. You may have to rent lockers. I know at Hershey Park, they have kind of little cubbies that you can put your bags in. So I always like to see what kind of bag policies they have and where I can actually put my bags whenever I go to the theme parks. It was nice. Universal has, with your ticket or with your card, you can actually just scan it and rent a locker for free. Sometimes, if you have a bigger bag, you do have to purchase and rent a locker, so that can cost some money. So that can kind of determine what size bag you want to bring as well. At Hershey Park, they had complimentary lockers, so you just inputted I think it was a 6-digit code, and you were able to rent for free a locker to put all of your belongings in while you're on the ride. So this is super helpful in case you are going by yourself. If you want to bring some items, know ahead of time where you can keep and put your bags so that way you can kind of plan your belongings out. If you don't have somebody that's going to hold your bags ahead of time, this is very helpful. So that way you can make sure that you can bring all of your essentials, but know that your bag is going to be taken care of while you are actually on the ride. This is also good for when you're going through security, what kind of items you can take in ahead of time, kind of plan out your essentials. So I highly recommend that. That's what I like to do. That's one of the other things that I really looked at when going to Hershey Park, because I do like bringing my bags. I like bringing essential items with me, but I knew there were a lot more coasters and I didn't know what I was going to be able to do with my bag ahead of time whenever I would be going on some of the coasters. So I always like to make sure that I check that out ahead of time. So yes, let's see here. So getting back to the Epcot topic. So you started in Canada your last trip, and Doofs, you're saying there are two types of people in the world: those who start in Mexico and those who start in Canada. I will say personally, I always like starting in Mexico. That is a kind of personally what I like to do, but I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about it. And yes, I know Universal makes you put your stuff in lockers. It's annoying. I know a lot of people can get very annoyed with the lockers. It can kind of take up some time. It's just kind of the nature of the ride. Sometimes you do have to, in order to make sure that everyone's safe, you do have to have all of the items in a locker. I know Hershey Park, you had to have items in a locker, or if you didn't want to use the locker, they do have the cubbies on the other side of the ride. I don't personally like using those because I like, if I have, my phone or any other special belongings, I don't want them to get accidentally taken or stolen. So I do like using the lockers, but I do know that they can take a little bit of time. And, they can be kind of a nuisance, but at least it's nice that they have them if you do need to use them. Let's see. I don't know about the Moroccan restaurant. Okay, so Doofs, you're saying no. I have not personally eaten there. So thank you, Doofs, for answering that question. And Disney World is my happy place. Your bag never fits in the free locker. The thing I liked about Hershey Park was they do have a lot larger size lockers. And I'm glad you brought this up, because one of the best things that I recommend doing as well, if the parks do have lockers, check the bag size ahead of time to make sure that your bag does either fit in the free locker, or make sure that if you are going to need to pay for a locker, know that your bag will be able to fit in that one. I know I kind of have to be strategic about the Loungefly that I take when I go to Universal, because they are kind of like a small little rectangular shape for the locker size. And sometimes the front pockets don't fit inside of the locker. You kind of have to squish them in. So thank you for bringing that up. I know sometimes the free lockers can be very small, and it can be kind of a pain, because if you don't know about them ahead of time, you may have to pay that extra money for the paid locker, the much larger locker. So that's something good to look at ahead of time to avoid that extra cost. But I know that's the one thing I don't like about the locker sizes. Sometimes they aren't big enough for the bags that you want to take, but that's kind of like a little planning thing that you need to maybe look into before you visit. And let's see, I think my next topic is actually going to get into, yes, check and see if you can take snacks. That is a very good thing. That is a good transition into our next topic, being tip number 6, plan where and what to eat. So I know when we went to Hershey Park this 2 weekends ago, I know I keep talking about Hershey Park, but it's because this is where the inspiration for this video came. So when we went to Hershey Park, we kind of had to use the map on the app that they had to see what kind of dining opportunities they have. That is the one thing that I forgot to look at ahead of time, to see where they had to eat. So a lot of parks will either have restaurants that you can make reservations at, or they'll have mobile, or they'll have kind of fast food type restaurants that you can eat at. It's very helpful. Most restaurants, and some of them actually have mobile ordering that you can take advantage of. So that way you don't have to wait in lines. You can kind of order on some of the apps that the parks have. So that way you can order what you need, get in and get out, and kind of keep going about your day. But I recommend ahead of time, especially if you're going to Disney or Universal or some of the bigger theme parks, there are some restaurants that are very, very popular that people like to visit. Reservations can book up for these restaurants. It's very nice to get reservations ahead of time, kind of do some research and see if you need to do that in order to actually visit the restaurants and make sure that you eat there. But there are quick service restaurants, a lot of them that you can eat whenever you're in the parks. And to make sure that you're maximizing your day, of course, it is no fun at all for people to get hangry hungry whenever you're in the theme parks. So one thing that's very nice to do is to actually plan out ahead of time where you want to eat. And a big thing too is when you eat. I definitely don't recommend eating during peak meal times. When we were at Hershey Park, we ate around 5 o'clock, and that is when everybody and their brother wanted to eat. So we waited in long lines to actually get food. So make sure that you are being smart about when you eat. Figure out ahead of time where, and kind of that goes along with looking at the park map, see where some of these restaurants and quick service restaurants are located. So that way you can know where to actually go and eat whenever everybody is hungry and wanting a bite to eat. So definitely recommend looking into dining ahead of time as well whenever you are going to the parks. Of course, too, like we were saying, if you want to bring snacks, if you're bringing a bag, it's very nice. There are some go-to snacks that I have whenever going to the parks that I like to just munch on throughout my day. So that way I don't get hangry, and that way I can keep staying refueled and ready to go whenever I'm on my visit. So being able to know ahead of time where you're eating is a big part of a theme park as well. I know Disney World, people love the snacks that the Disney parks have. A lot of parks are getting into the snack thing as well, where they may have some seasonal or holiday snacks. So that might be something that you want to check out whenever you are at the park that you are going to. And let's see. So that's another good thing that you bring up to Doofs. Luckily, Disney lets you take in all the food that you want, just no glass or alcohol. Some parks are picky and they don't like you to take in food. I know for Hershey Park, I was able to take some snacks in. They recommended not bringing snacks, but when we went to Aquatica, that is SeaWorld's water park, they did not let you bring any snacks into the park. So that is a really good thing to know ahead of time too. Just have an idea if you can even bring snacks whenever you're going to that theme park. It can help you to save some money, of course. It's nice to have some snacks on hand, but if you aren't able to bring them in, definitely just know that ahead of time. And it's a good thing to kind of keep in mind. So yeah, Doofs, I do love that. I love that Disney lets you bring it in. Universal has been pretty good as well. So that's just something good to think about whenever you are thinking about snacks and places to eat at the parks. And let's see. Your family loved Crystal Palace, and it was $39 last trip, but when we found out, oh, the price changed, but we are still going for this trip. Gotcha. Yeah, I know there has been some price increases at Disney World recently. Haven't really talked about that recently, but I'm excited that you're able to visit that restaurant. That's one place that I know some people like to eat whenever they are at Magic Kingdom. So I'm glad you can check it out. And Doofs, yes, I think you're right. The character dining, I think, is back. So, if you are wanting to check out some of the characters whenever you're in the park, definitely that is a great place to go and eat at whenever you are there. It seems like a really great place. I've never eaten there before, but I'm glad that you can check it out. So that's awesome. And you're saying Cedar Fair Carowinds in North Carolina doesn't let you bring food in either, or at least last time they didn't. So yeah, it definitely depends on the theme park. I've been to ones that are cool with it, some that aren't. So it's good to know ahead of time going in, so that way you can kind of properly plan around that if you wanted to have snacks for sure. And okay, yeah, so gotcha. The price changed because it's character dining again. Gotcha. So good to know. I know Disney's been bringing a lot of those back, which is nice. But good to know ahead of time too. So the seventh tip that I have here is to plan what to wear. So that's a huge thing that I like to check ahead of time. Of course, when going to Disney World, the weather can be very crazy, and planning what to wear and what the weather is a huge part of deciding what to wear, depending on if you're visiting in the summertime compared to visiting a park in the winter or fall time is very, very different. So what I like to do is check before going to the theme park. I like seeing what the weather is looking like, so that way I know what to wear. When we went to Hershey Park 2 weekends ago, it's getting into fall here in Pennsylvania, so it was very chilly towards the evening. I was actually wearing a hat and I had multiple layers on. But if you're visiting, Disney World during the summertime, it's going to be very hot, so you're going to want to wear light, breathable clothing. It may rain whenever you're on your visit. So always make sure that you are planning your clothing out ahead of time. That is a huge part of a theme park visit as well, because you want to make sure that you are staying comfortable throughout your visit whenever you are at the park, so you can maximize your time. Shoes are a huge thing as well too. I love making sure that the shoes I wear are very comfortable, breathable. If it rains, that they can dry very easily. So make sure that you are keeping in mind what you are deciding to wear whenever you are going to a park, because that can be a huge part of your visit itself. The next tip that I have, tip number 8, is to research park hours and events that are happening. So I always like making sure that I know what time the parks are going to be opening and closing. That can really give me a good idea of planning for my day. Of course, we talked about getting to the parks early, making sure that you can get into the parks to maximize your time, but also knowing ahead of time what time the park is going to be closing. Now that we're getting into the holidays, Halloween and Christmas are here. A lot of these parks might be doing seasonal events where the parks may close early during the evening. So I know with the park that we are going to here soon, one of the evenings it is going to be closing early. So that gives us a good idea of how we need to plan out our day, because some things might not be offered on those days that the parks are going to be closing early. I know for Disney World, on their not so scary Halloween party days, sometimes the fireworks aren't happening. So if you want to make sure that you can absolutely get to an experience when you are doing the planning process, kind of have an idea of what times the parks are closing, if there's any events that are going to be happening, maybe do or don't visit, depending on if you want to, stay in the parks later, go on a day that some of these seasonal events aren't happening. Sometimes at Disney World, there are Run Disney events that happen, and there's a lot busier weekends than others. So this can kind of help you figure out when you want to plan and just have a good idea of when you're going to be actually getting to and leaving the parks. So that way you can keep maximizing your time, like we keep saying here. So I always like making sure I have an idea of when the parks are going to be opening and closing. Sometimes too, depending on, if you're a resort guest, if you're a pass holder, sometimes you might get early entry into these parks. So having an idea of when they open can give you an idea of when you can actually get in early or not. So I always like making sure that I know when the parks are going to be opening and closing when you are visiting the theme park. And let's see. So July 7th, one half of the day was burning hot. Yeah, sweat dripping on us. And then the next half was raining for hours. We were soaked. Yeah, so the weather can definitely be crazy whenever you're visiting the theme park. So I always like making sure that I have, good clothes that I am comfortable in. Sometimes you may need a change of clothes. You may need an extra pair of shoes. So this planning is very, very helpful for sure. So let's see here. For Six Flags Fright Fest, they actually close a lot later, usually 11 or 10 p.m., and they normally close from 6 to 9 p.m. So yeah, I'm not super familiar with Six Flags, but I know for Disney World, for example, whenever they are doing their Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party, for actual non-party guests, the park closes at 6 p.m. and the party officially starts at 7 p.m. for party guests. So if you don't have admission to the party, you do have to leave at around 6 p.m. So say you're visiting a park and you aren't doing some of the holiday events, you may need to leave early. So this is just something to keep in mind. But yeah, every park is different and stuff. I'll have to look into Six Flags for sure. I know Hershey Park was different. Their Dark Nights had happened, and if I'm thinking right, their park stayed open the entire time, but if you didn't have admission to the Dark Nights, you just couldn't get into the houses in the Dark Nights kind of area, which was nice. We weren't necessarily kicked out of the park, but we couldn't just do the holiday event if we wanted to. We had to actually have admission for it. So just something nice to keep in mind when thinking about, especially during these holidays. The ninth tip that we have is to research entertainment. So say you don't like rides, or you're going with younger kids that maybe can't do more of the coaster-based attractions or some of the rides. One thing that's really nice to research ahead of time is entertainment that happens in the park. So maybe you want to check out if the park has parades, if they have shows, are there characters that you can go meet and greet with. I always like looking and seeing what times the entertainment is going to be happening. I know on the My Disney Experience app and other apps that the theme parks have, sometimes they lay out what times the parades will be happening. You can see where characters can be met at and what times they come out at. There's lots of shows that happens in the parks, so you can kind of check the times that those will be happening. So I love doing this when planning, so that way I can absolutely see a show or kind of plan around seeing a show, so that way I don't miss something. So this is very, very helpful. At Hershey Park, they actually had characters that you can meet. They had some of their, Hershey's chocolate candy, which was very fun to go and check out. So if you aren't into rides or if you want to do more of the entertainment things, definitely just see what is available. If you aren't a huge coaster person, it might be nice to go and check something else out while the rest of your party is doing a coaster. So just look and see if there are any other kind of entertainment type things whenever you are visiting the park. And the last thing that I have to say is to research height requirements for ride. This kind of goes into like what I said, if you're visiting with, kids that maybe can't ride coasters or can't ride some of the bigger rides, definitely look ahead of time and see what the height requirements are for some of the rides when you are looking to see, kind of planning out what rides there are and what you want to do. This will make sure that, if you have a kid that maybe just meets the height requirement or isn't tall enough, you can kind of let them know ahead of time so that way they aren't super sad whenever they actually get to the park. So this is good for planning purposes if you are going with kids. So hope you guys enjoyed and found those tips helpful. I know those are all things that I really like to look into whenever going to a new theme park. All of these things really helped me out and really helped me learn from my experience whenever going to new theme parks, especially with Hershey Park this past weekend. So I hope you guys found those helpful. And let's see. So let me take a drink and then I'm going to share with you our special announcement. So if you are just hopping in or if you missed the beginning, I did want to say we have a very special announcement tonight. You guys need to pack your bags because we are going to visit a new theme park. Next week, we are going to be headed to, let me bring it up here. We are actually going to be headed to Disneyland, everyone. So next week, this was very, very last minute, but we have planned a last minute spontaneous trip to Disneyland. I am super, super excited. We've got some ears here all ready for our visit. I don't know if it's background or backwards for you guys, but we are headed to Disneyland. I'm very excited. They've got some things going on out there that I am very excited to bring you guys along with. So not only am I excited to go out and really see where everything started in terms of Disney and the parks, but I am super excited because this is my first time visiting Disneyland. I hope I said Disneyland and not Disney World, but this is my first time visiting Disneyland out in California. We're going to California. I'm super pumped. Like I said, it's my first time. And it's been a little bit of a learning process, kind of planning out the trip since it was so last minute. So I'm really excited to share with you guys my first thoughts, kind of compare it to Disney World because that is my home park, so to speak. And I'm excited to share, what my lessons learned. So that way, if you were visiting Disneyland or if you're kind of debating if you want to visit Disney World or Disneyland, I'm just excited to share all the things with you. So they've got Magic Band Plus is going to be coming out whenever we're over there. I'm so excited to check that out. That's a huge thing for Disneyland because they have not yet had Magic Bands. So this will be very excited to go and cover that for you guys. So I'm just super pumped. I'm so excited. We're going to California. We're going to Disneyland. That'll be next week. And I'm going to be sharing all the things with you. So yeah, I'm very, very, very excited. So we're going to Disneyland. Deuce. I didn't even share that with you guys. So very, very excited. And yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing next week. So I did want to bring that up too, because next week on Wednesday, since we'll be over there, we'll probably be doing the live stream in Disneyland itself. So hopefully the connection and everything will be good over there. So I'm excited to bring you guys live over there as well. So Yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. I want to open it up to final thoughts and comments that you guys have. And let's see. So, are there lockers throughout the park? That's it for Disney World. If you're talking about Disney World, there aren't really any lockers that they have at Disney World. Universal has a bunch of lockers. That's one thing that you want to look into ahead of time if you are going to a park. See what kind of rides there are and if you need to actually use a locker when you are going there. So definitely recommend taking that into consideration for sure. I don't know about Disneyland. I'm gonna have to see if they have lockers or not. So, but thank you guys so much for tuning in to the live stream tonight. If it's your first time here, I want to say welcome. Or if you're watching on the replay, this video is a part of our weekly Wednesday live stream series that we talk about here on the channel at 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Wednesday. So very, very excited about this. And I'll have to let you know. Disney, tell us if you think Disneyland runs it differently. Yeah, so we'll have to take advantage of Genie Plus. I didn't even think about that, Kitty Cathy. So that might be something that we have to check out. So thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. Hope you guys found these tips helpful. Let me know in the comments if you're going to a theme park anytime soon, and we will see you guys in the next video. See you guys.